to Living Life and Love. I'm your host, Mark Braxton from Raleigh, North Carolina. This is a global vitiligo awareness and education podcast. You will hear the true and authentic stories from people living with vitiligo. You'll also hear from their loved ones, medical professionals, licensed mental health therapists, relationship counselors, global vitiligo support foundations and organizations, community leaders, and so much more. Sit back and enjoy Living Life and Love. Once again, I'm your host, Mark Braxton from Raleigh, North Carolina. Welcome to Living Life and Love. I'm your host, Mark Braxton from Raleigh, North Carolina. So on today's show, I have a reoccurring guest, and that is Elisa. Welcome to the program.
Hi, Mark. How are you?
I'm doing great. Teaching in the great test, trying to survive, all that good stuff. So I'm here. Put it that way. I'm here.
Well, here.
Yes, and one more week.
Okay.
Yeah.
You're almost there.
Yeah, almost. But you know what's frustrating when you talk to other educators, they're done. Oh, we finished last week or the week before. And I'm thinking, we're still in school. Like, we're done. And the kids were done a long time ago.
Yeah.
Most of them checked out. And they're like, why am I here? I know. And some of us are thinking the same thing. Why are you here? You don't want to learn anything else. Yeah.
Someone's here.
Yes. So I want to talk a little bit about changing, starting over, in particular about careers. I know when we talk about changes, starting over, it can apply to many different things, such as friendships and relationships and all that. But we want to talk about careers. And I think about even as an educator, within the past few years, I've had a couple of changes. And in a sense, starting over, but they've all been good things, but in the beginning, it's like, ooh, what's happening,
Yeah.
So before we really dig into it, you had this wonderful place in Cary, Raleigh. I always get confused. Am I in Cary? I'm in Raleigh. Where am I?
Right on the border.
Right. And that was Flavors Ice Cream. And I always say it's a wonderful place because that's one of the last places that my dad had a chance to visit. And he's always loved the ice cream. And sometimes I'll tell him, Pops, you can't get that much. He was like, oh, I'll get that double scoop. So he really enjoyed it. And I felt like it was a good family environment, and the different events we attended there as well, the community events. I thought it was a great place. Share with the listeners a little bit about Flavors and up to today, and then we'll kind of transition.
Okay. So you hit some nail on the head there when it came to Flavors. It was a community place. We were in business for 5 years. We were doing awesome. The first couple of years to 3 years, and the last 2 years, it started going downhill because we had an issue with the town of Cary and wanting the grease trap and all of that, and it was just costing a lot of money. Even though we did a lot of community events, right, and the community came out and they support as much as they can, and we did get the grease trap in, but however, it had already taken a toll on us, with the different expenses and losing income and stuff like that. Right. So even though we got the grease trap, and I tried after we had the grease trap installed, it had already taken a toll, and it was all the expenses was already adding up, and it was just a tough situation. So I had to make that decision to let go.
Yeah.
It was a hard decision, of course, and that I toiled with that decision, right, for a long time, and just trying to hold on as long as I can, and just grasping at straws and everything. But the decision had to be made because I was just getting deeper and deeper in debt.
Right.
So I made the decision, and of course, it was hard. Like I said, it took me a long time to even post on Facebook that the shop closed, because I wasn't there yet. And then finally, right, once we closed and everything was settled, I decided, okay, now it's time to let the community know. And we got a lot of sad feedbacks, and we got stories and so forth. One like your dad's, and we've made a lot of friends.
Right.
Met a lot of friends, a lot of acquaintances, a lot of colleagues, a lot of networking, and so I intend to stay in touch with people as we go along. So when that door opened, and that's a journey that's come to an end. So
Yeah.
gotta walk through that door now, next door.
Yeah. It was a sad journey because you know what happened. I didn't know you had closed. I didn't see the Facebook post, and I rode past. I'm like, I want some ice cream, and I'm like, wait a minute, close. It's like, hold on. So I went online. I tried to look up because I had your website and all that information. I'm like, it's not there. Wait a minute, hold on. And then finally, I think I went on your page and I saw that you had posted about it closing. I was like, man, I'm like 3 weeks too late.
Yeah.
I missed it. But
Sorry, I had a customer that didn't know we were closed either, and she gave me a bad review after we were closed because she went for ice cream with the kids and we were closed.
oh wow.
And I'm like, oh my gosh. I got a bad review at the end.
At the end, at that point, it doesn't even matter. but it's I'm gonna say this. It's always good to follow your dreams, and sometimes if you never follow your dreams, you'll never have the experiences like you had with connecting with the community, seeing how it impacted people and brought people together. Sometimes we are too afraid to step outside of our comfort zone to follow those dreams. Before we jump into new doors, let's talk a little bit about following your dreams, because flavor was one of your dreams that you wanted to do.
Yes.
And we've talked about it before, but just kind of recap, what inspired you and what was it like taking that first leap of faith?
So the inspiration came many years ago. So I that I had a brain surgery to remove a tumor about 14 years ago. And when we found out about the tumor and having to have the surgery, it was supposed to be an emergency surgery because I was given that 6-month span to live with it if I didn't remove it. So I had a community come together, my small community, my village came together, and part of that was my kids were still in high school and middle school, and I had families from the school all band together and would help out in this particular time. And one of the things that one of the families did was we lived in Southport at the time, and they would take my boys, which were younger then, they would take them down to Southport at this little ice cream shop in Southport, the only ice cream shop in Southport. And in the summers, we would go by there and we would see all these people just around this ice cream shop. I mean, you name it, any kind, creed, and race of people. You saw at this ice cream shop, and people would be hugging people and just talking and saying, hi, I want you to meet this one. And, and it just brought joy.
Right.
That little ice cream shop. My son even worked at that ice cream shop for a little while, for a few summers well. And so we always thought that's where the inspiration came from. And going through that journey is like, wow, if we could do that, something like that, just to bring people together, just to bring families and community together and just get that joy. And that's where the inspiration came from, but I never followed up on it because of course I had the surgery and trying to get over that and, different things. And the boys were young and of course money and all that came into play. But fast forward, I moved to Raleigh and the opportunity presented itself again. And I was like, this was something that I had inspired and dreamed of doing. We talked about this numerous times. I was like, maybe it's time for me to step into it. And this was in COVID.
Right.
And I remember talking to somebody from SCORE. SCORE, the small business. They coach and mentor small business owners. And I spoke to him and I was like, this is my idea. Da, da, da. And he said, I wouldn't do that if I was you. He said,
Okay.
especially not now in COVID.
Right.
I would not advise you to do that. And I came off the phone. I was so discouraged. But then, I prayed about it and everything. And I was like, no, you need to do this. And I did it in the midst of COVID. And that, it just jumped off. It just jumped off. And it turned out really well. And that's just to show you, when you have that vision and you have that dream and you trust and you believe, you can do it. You can do anything,
Absolutely.
right? You just have to do it. And that's kind of what I did. COVID time was scary. Everything was shut down. Nobody was going anywhere. This guy's telling me this is not a good move.
Right.
I'm like, So the inspiration came from that little shop in Southport. And I think I told you this before. Once I started really getting into it, the colors, the setup, everything came to me in my dream.
Right.
And I would just get up in the night and write down what I saw in that dream. And I would try to put it together on the computer and so it came out kind of exactly what I wanted or how I saw it. That was the dream. And
Wow.
to see it was, when it initially opened up and I just saw all the colors and everybody, the people, it just blew my mind.
And that's, I'm just going to say, that's how God works,
Yes.
With your dreams, experiences. And sometimes you don't know how he's going to work, and he's working all these things into play. I kind of think about my dad in a sense, because he wanted to own his own restaurant. And we did have a restaurant for about a year and a half. Then he got sick. But he said, at least I followed my dream. And I had my restaurant and I opened up. And it was a family thing. Everybody pitched in to help out. And, and I'll say it was some hard work. But once he got sick, it kind of was a lot of hard work. But once he got sick, it kind of, we had to shut down.
Right.
But I could say at least he followed his dream. And sometimes I take from it, pursuing your dream doesn't mean it's going to be a dream that lasts forever, but it's something you accomplish. So, we can look at it in that term. Right.
And that's the way I look at it, Mark. I was like, because before I was like, oh, maybe I didn't hear from God and maybe I didn't this. And I was like, no. Because I went to church service. I went to church and I heard the pastor loud and clear because I was questioning everything at that point.
Right.
And I was like, Lord, well, did I hear you? Did you guide me? Did I, and all these questions. And he clearly, and the pastor said on that Sunday, he said, yes, God gave you the idea. Yes, you stepped into it. Yes, it's not going well right now. But he said, that doesn't mean it's the end. It was a lesson to be learned in there.
Right.
He was so clear in the message. And I was like, I get it.
Absolutely. Even for myself, I never thought about podcasting. I went to school for communications, radio, TV, journalism, but in the 90s, everybody was fighting for that same one radio job or same one job. It was a very crazy market. And I actually did my internship at 97.5, but there was no openings. So it was nothing available. But my heart has always been with kids. So I went in the direction that I had to follow. That was working with kids. But COVID, once again, a lot of doors shut, but also other doors open. And I was asked to talk about my vitiligo journey. I've never talked about my vitiligo before. I didn't want to talk about it. It was something that I didn't think it was of interest to anybody. And I didn't want to share it because I never talked about it. And I did. And that was Valerie asked me. She's with BitFriends. She's their founder. And she asked me to come on the podcast and share my story. I did. She said, okay, I want you to host your own show. Okay. What do I say? Who do I talk to? It's your show. You come up with it. But it was radio. We did it through Blog Talk Radio, and at first it was draining. I would talk to people and I'm like, oh gosh, I can't wait to stop. I'm ready to go lay down because I'm tired now because it was draining. But the more I talked to people, the easier it became. And I kind of figure out my voice, how I want to run my show, how I want to do it. And we were actually on Spotify, iHeartRadio, and a couple other places.
Mhm.
And eventually I would like to get back there, but I was with them all through the pandemic, up until about a year ago. And I said, I want to do something different. And plus, my dad was sick and I
Right.
just needed to focus on other things. And there are some things I wanted to do for myself as well. So I walked away from it. And I didn't think I was going to come back to podcasting until I went to a conference in Indiana. And one of the doctors there, he said, yeah, I listened to your show. At some point, I would like to come back on your show or come to your show. And I was like, oh, okay, I don't have a show. And I went back to my room and kind of thought about, wow, if I started a show, how would I do it? Where would I do it? And I'm thinking YouTube, create a
Mhm.
video and do a format. And that's why I have the format I have now. And I wanted to be creative with it and kind of add my own personality into it. And, I know some people focus on numbers and all that stuff. And I'm
Yeah.
like, no, I'm more about reaching the person who's listening to it.
Right.
If it changes somebody's life, whether I know it or not, that's what's important to me,
Right.
And I know as we're talking, when these doors close, another door will open,
Right.
and sometimes we get fearful because we don't know what that door looks like, especially if there are no windows.
Right.
We can't see on the other side. It's like, do I open that door? No, I don't know now. If it
Mhm.
has windows, we can see what's on the other side and we can kind of guess, but sometimes what's on the other side is not what you really see.
Mm-mm.
Now, let's talk about starting over, transitioning from one career closing into a new career. And if you don't mind, just share what that is and how did you get involved?
Okay. Well, before I say that, I have to say I remember you and I sitting at the shop talking about the YouTube, you not wanting to do it. You didn't think
Right,
it was time,
right.
like you are. So I'm glad that you stepped into it and you did it. But I would say I have to say this for me. I have certain fears, but I don't think starting over is one of my fears.
Okay.
Um I do have fears because I have started over so much in this lifetime in different things that I think it has become a little bit easy for me to
Hmm.
do. Um, so when I closed the shop, it's not that I was scared to start over. It's that I feared that I failed
Okay, gotcha.
at the
Makes
shop.
sense. Yes.
And I didn't, and the fear came where I didn't want to fail in something else,
Right.
if that makes sense. So it's not, my fear is not of starting over, it's the failing piece.
Hmm.
I had to see that the shop didn't fail. It actually was a success.
It was, yes.
It's based on the community and the feedback and everything that we did in 5 years. I had to see it that it was a success, and I had people who told me it was a success, and I had to get that in my mind. But my fear is the failure part.
Yeah.
So while I was at the shop, I left my full-time job, making good money,
Right.
um, and opened this shop to making no money. And then while I was doing that, in the midst of doing that, I think in my third year of the shop and realizing it was starting to turn for me,
Right.
I got into real estate.
Okay.
And so I was doing both, kind of coinciding with each other. So while I was at the shop, I was studying and I was doing all these other things, trying to get my real estate license. So I was already in the process
Okay.
while
Good.
the shop was open. So even right at the end to what, so I have my license now for about 2 years,
Okay, good.
my real estate license, but I wasn't practicing the way I wanted to because the shop was open, but I was just, I was still doing open houses and running to the shop after
Right.
because I'm trying to build this business as well. So once the shop closed, was able to dive in
Right.
fully in to real estate.
Okay.
So again, for me, it's change is not hard for me. I've done it so many times.
Right.
So now I'm into real estate, and here we are. The fears back of failing at this, and I think you know me well enough by now, a little bit. I work really hard at things that
Right.
I do. I put my all in all, and part of that is because I fear failure.
Trust me, I get it. As a school teacher, the one thing you don't want to see, you get your test scores back and you go, oh, but then you have to put things into perspective.
Yeah.
There are some students that are high achievers. There are some
Right.
students that they're right in the middle. And then there are some students that it could be a language barrier. It could be a student with disabilities, and I had to really go, okay, I understand it. But
Right.
there's still growth. And that's what I have to look at, the growth and not the grade or not the number. Because you look at the numbers, you get afraid, you go, well, I failed all these kids. And I'm like,
Right.
no, that child wasn't writing in the beginning of the school year. That child's writing now.
Right.
Or that child wouldn't read before. That child's starting to read,
Right.
or that child couldn't speak English. But here it is at the end of the school year, the child's reading and speaking in English. So I have to look at those victories. Um, and you're right. It is the fear of failing.
Yeah.
And sometimes life does that to you based on, personal situations. It could be
Right.
relationships, whatever. If they don't work, you feel
Yes.
like I failed at that. And then you go to a
Mhm.
job and that job doesn't work out. I failed at that. All these things build up and you're like, no, I didn't fail. Maybe that job wasn't for me.
Right.
Or maybe that situation here had to end in order for me to grow to be where I am now.
Right.
That's how I have to process things now. Because if I look back at every situation,
Oh, Mark.
yeah, yeah, and I think that's for a lot of us. We sometimes get stuck
Yeah.
in what didn't work or how these things turned out instead of looking at what did you learn from it,
Mhm.
and how did it propel you to the next level in your life or the next step in your life. And I do take every situation, every experience as a learning experience.
Mhm.
And I say, okay, how can I grow from this?
Mhm.
And although I may not see it instantly, the growth, I go back and look, oh, I'm not the same person I was
Right.
5 months ago. I'm different. That's
Yeah.
good. That's growth,
Yes. And I can say that for this year, I last year dealing with the shop and everything, and I feel like at some point I felt broken. I felt
Mm-mm.
like I had
Yes.
lost myself. Everything was in the shop, and it was all the shop. I didn't do anything else, Mark. I'm
Right.
telling you, I would get invited, come do this, and I was like, no, I have the shop. And
Right.
everything was wrapped up into this shop. And so last year when I was going through this and losing it, I felt like I was just losing everything. And I felt so broken. And I felt like there were times, and this is I only a handful of people know this, but I really seriously thought I was going into a deep depression
Yeah.
last year. And I remember I pray a lot. And I remember I was in the bathroom one night and I just praying, and I just started crying, and the strain and the pressure just fell under my shoulders so hard that night. And I just started bawling in here in my place. I just started bawling. I didn't know what to do, where to turn. And I just looked up to the heaven and said, I was like, Lord, don't want to do this anymore. I don't want to
Yeah.
feel like this anymore. Take this from me. That is exactly what I said to him. And turn of this year, things started lifting. And sometimes that's sometimes I'm not trying to preach, but I feel it so much right now. And sometimes that's where he wants us to be, because we're so
Right.
independent on us that he wants us to depend on him. And
Right.
sometimes in these are the circumstances and situations that make you understand how much you need him and how much you can't depend on you, because
Right.
you're human, right?
Right. Right.
And I got to that point. I really did. And I didn't want to be in that space. And all I could see was I failed. I failed. I failed. And I don't want to be here.
Right.
And I had to walk through that. And I lean on God and I depend on God, but still as humans, we have this thing where we want to we want to be our own little gods. We can make
Right.
it happen. We can
Right.
make it happen. And that's what I was trying to do. I'll be very honest with you. Yes, I know God. Yes, I pray. Yes, but I was still trying to make the shop happen.
Right.
No, I can't. I worked too hard at this, put too much money into this. I can't fail at this. I got to keep going. I got to keep trying. Something needs to give. When God was saying, no, I gave you the vision.
Right.
You walked into the vision. You did it for a season.
Yeah.
That season is over. You have so much more experience in this. And I want to share a story quick in regards to the experience, because the person that came and took over the shop, no experience. None.
Wow.
And he has leaned on me so much. And I have showed him, and I'm sure, and he's so grateful, like from A to Z. This is what you need to do. This is step by step by step. As I don't
Right.
make the same mistakes I made. Don't do it. And so had I not been through that,
Right. You couldn't help him.
help him.
Yeah.
And I see that as a blessing. And people say, people are like, well, you need to charge him a consultant fee. No.
Right. Right.
I say everything is not about money. I don't have to charge him a consultant fee, because let me tell you something. When I was going through that hardship at the shop, I had so many people show up for me. I had attorneys showing up for me. You name, you guys, the plumbers, the electricians, you guys were showing up, throwing events to raise money. People were showing up for me. So why would I not show up for somebody else after
Right.
God has walked me through it and showed me and teach me? Now it's time for me to return that grace.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
You
Absolutely.
never know why you go through what you go through, but that was just my experience. And it was, you lean on God more.
Absolutely. And I think with the weight of the world today, I think a lot of people are going through these hardships and leading up to like depression and anxiety and all that stuff. And sometimes they don't realize it's just to get you out of a current situation or your current season in order to propel you to the next.
Mm-hmm.
And I was just thinking, like, was it before spring break and during spring break and after spring? I was in that. I was overwhelmed. I was getting burnt out.
Mm-hmm.
I just felt like I do a lot of work at the school besides just teaching. Like I'll do the fundraising, and I did
Mm-hmm.
this, and if there's a play or somebody needs help, I'm always giving,
Mm-hmm.
and I don't ask for anything in return. However, it was last week actually. I was just done. I got to work. We just had an event. I worked the event, and I was tired. I told the kids, just get on your computers and read something. Epic Mayan, doesn't matter which one. I'm tired.
Yeah.
And after they finished, I said, we're going to do a writing prompt because I didn't feel like teaching. I was just exhausted.
Yeah.
And the principal knocked on the door. I was like, can I come in? I was like, oh, Lord, here they go. They're going to give me another student that's acting out in somebody else's class. I don't have the power. I don't have the energy for it. I don't have the mentality for it right now. I just, sure, come on in. You know, I just say, come on in. And they presented me with an award.
Yes, I saw
And yeah, and it shocked me because, you know, for one, I wasn't expecting it. Two, I was so exhausted that I didn't want to be bothered. And I
Mm.
just assumed they were going to drop another student from another class onto me because that's what happens, you know.
Mhm.
And it gave me a boost. You know,
Yeah.
it made me feel good. I
Yeah.
celebrated with the students because I said I couldn't do this without you guys. I said,
Right.
you know, yes, I'm teaching, but you're also learning from me. So they're watching not just me, they're watching you too and the growth. And it changed me in the moment because it said it let me know that you can go through things. You could be tired, exhausted, whatever. You don't look for a reward, it comes to you, you know. And somebody asked me, did you get money? No, it'd be nice, but no, Wake County's not gonna give you the money. No, it wasn't a bonus, but it was just the fact that he recognized what I do.
Right.
And I appreciate that. You talked about seasons, and we're gonna touch on this briefly. Everything has a season, you
Everything.
know. Um, Jobs have a season, careers have a season, you start all over.
Mhm.
Some friendships have a season because I know I have friends that I've known them since college. I have friends I've known since high school, since
Yeah.
elementary, but
Mhm.
that season stopped. We're still
Yeah.
friends, I'm still cool with them, but like that hangout period stopped and we went in different directions.
Yeah.
You know, I think about relationships and marriages. I know like people ask me, you've been married before? Yeah, it didn't work out. You know,
Mhm.
that season ran its course and it's time for us to go in different directions and live our lives, you know.
Mhm.
And I think when as people, as we're going through all these different changes and experiences, it you mentioned being broken. It breaks us,
It
you know,
does.
until we learn how to fix ourselves, but we can't do it alone. You know,
Yeah.
we often say to ourselves and other people, you got this. And I had to tell a colleague, sorry, I don't, I don't have this. Um, and we lean on God and we pray to him. And sometimes the answer he'll give us is through somebody else or through another group or through a
Yes.
situation.
Mhm.
And I'm like, oh, that was the answer. Okay. I didn't see it. Um, there are times I felt completely alone. Then I
Yeah.
realized I have students.
Yeah.
And they'll check on me. Are you okay? Like, yeah, I'm good. When you ask me, am I okay? Go sit down and read, you know. But people can pick up on your spirit. And
Absolutely.
and I'm thinking these kids are reading me.
Yes.
What am I showing on my face? What am I showing? And there are times I have to say, okay, let's do this. Let's go, teaching mode, you know, and having fun with them. Because obviously they saw something in me that I wasn't seeing, you
Yeah.
know.
Yeah. Um, you're right. A lot of times for me, I know I have such a personality and I love people and most times my personality is upbeat, bubbly, laughing, fun. So people always know if something's going on with me. And even though they ask, I would say, no, I'm good.
Yeah, well,
I'm good.
I'm good.
I'm
Yep.
all right. I'm good. Yeah, I'm fine.
Hmm.
Deep down inside, like I said, last year, most of last year, I was broken.
Yeah.
I was literally broken. I actually, I had a period, not last year, but at some point in my life, I was in an abusive relationship, and I went through that, and I was suicidal. I
Mhm.
was young, and I was in my 20s, and I was suicidal, and I attempted suicide before. So, and I know what I felt.
Right.
So last year, when I was going through all of this, I was showing up at the shop. I was doing what I needed to do. I was pushing through, trying to save the shop.
Right.
You saw me at events. I did
Right.
interviews, and I was smiling. But I was so broken inside. Mark, I I was feeling that feeling that I had.
Right.
back then. And I knew, I started to say it to myself, and I call her my sister cousin. We talk a lot. We grew up together. She's a prayer warrior, and I talked to her a lot. And I called her and I said, this is what I'm feeling. And I vow never to go to this place
Right.
again. So we need to pray. We need to fast. We need to do whatever I need you. So I started leaning on her
Right.
back here because I was in such a bad place. Even though I was showing up, I was smiling for everybody, and that season was coming to an end, and I couldn't handle it.
Right.
Because I saw it as failure. So I was putting all this pressure on myself to make it a success when God was saying, it's over.
It's time. Yeah.
It's you ran the course. This is over for you. I'm releasing you from this. So are you going to sit here in this and die?
Right.
Or are you going to lean on me, allow me to release you from this, and you move on to the next thing? So you just have to get to that point. Now, some people are strong enough to make it through.
Right.
I'm smiling, I'm laughing, but this is so serious, man. It's so serious because I'm thinking about when I didn't see the light at the end of the tunnel back then. And I overdosed on pills, but it didn't happen, thank God. And I felt myself falling into that trap again. And I called my cousin, and I was on the phone with her for like 2 hours, just tears just flowing. Like, I don't want to be here. I don't want to be here. There's no reason for me to be here. It was bad last year. And I made a vow. I said to myself, the turn of 2025 is going to be different for you.
Right.
You're gonna try your best to listen to the voice of God and walk in that path. That it's not going to be easy, but you're gonna do it.
Right.
Because you can't stay in this place. So sometimes there's a song that I always listen to, encourage yourself in the Lord. Sometimes you don't have people around you to encourage you.
Exactly. You know, a couple of things you said now, and it's funny, I always say it to my kids at school: try your best. I said, all we can do is our best. And sometimes it may not live up to somebody else's standards. Sometimes our best doesn't even live up to our standards, but still try. I said, at least you're not giving up and you're still trying. We talk about this a lot in the vitiligo community, is having a support community. Because we deal with a lot, watching our skin change and all this stuff. And then on top of being just a human being and going through stuff that everybody goes through, the depression is real. The feeling of not being enough is real, or not fitting in, and there's nobody, you got to find, I shouldn't say find, but you should have at least somebody you can go to talk to, and sometimes we think we got to have a crew of people. No, you just need one person you can talk to.
One person.
And you got to be careful who you talk to, because sometimes because people can give you. I had a conversation with someone, and I was sharing what I was feeling in the moment, and I was looking for comfort. I was looking, that's all I needed was comfort.
That's all we need.
And comfort. What I got was completely opposite.
Yes.
And what I heard was, you just doing too much.
Yeah.
That's not what I needed. In the moment, I'm sharing all these things that's going on.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, I can do podcasts and talk to people, and I can go teach, and looks like I'm having fun and all this. But there are those moments, like you mentioned, that we become depressed, or we feel like it's just us in the world and there's nobody else. And who do I talk to? Who, there's, you might have family members, but sometimes you can't talk to them.
Can't talk to them. Yeah.
It's a different level of communication. Sometimes you can't talk to the church members.
Nope.
So you have to find that person who's going to listen, and it may not be who you think it is.
Absolutely.
And I say that because I have a colleague at work, and I have no idea if she listens to the podcast or not. She is the most positive, uplifting person, I think, in the whole school. And it's the word I need in that moment, even when I'm feeling like I'm not doing a great job today.
Right.
She
Yes.
gives me the compliments. And and she's a professor at State. Probably if she listens to this, she knows who she is now, but she's a professor at State. She does some other things. Always have been on my side, encouraging me to do this. And I encourage you, oh, you are this, and I'm sitting there going, I don't see that, but you see it. And I appreciate the compliments because in that moment, maybe that's what I need to hear.
Right.
You know,
don't see it. You don't
yeah,
see it in yourself. It's hard to see it in yourself and then somebody else to see it. But you need that, like you say, you need that one person, but that one or two people
yeah.
who is not judgmental
Ju-
of
that is, I know I'm laughing, but judgmental. Oh
Yeah.
gosh, that is the key.
Yeah.
Wow.
Judgmental.
And I'm sighing on that because sometimes the people closest to us will be the ones that would judge us the most.
Yes, Mark. Yes.
And they, in the name of supporting you, can say some of the worst things ever to make you feel even worse than what you already feel, and that's not what you need. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And sometimes it's like, I don't need you to fix anything. I don't want you. I'm not coming to you to fix it.
Right.
I want somebody to listen. I just want you to listen. Let me pour out what I have in that's weighing me down. Some comfort, some sort of comfort. I don't want you to fix it. Not all the time you need to fix it.
Right.
And this is what I have a couple of people that do that for me. My circle is very, very small. I can count it on one hand. And they all prayer warriors, thank God. And I know their strengths and I know their weaknesses.
Right.
But I'm such a, I hold things in. I hold a lot of things in because I don't want to feel like I'm bothering somebody.
There we go. Yes.
So I hold a lot of it in until I pop.
Mm-hmm.
And then when I get to that point, I'll reach out. So I'm trying to be better. I'm trying to be proactive rather than reactive with it. So we got to know the ones that we can go to, that we can trust with our emotions.
Right.
Because when I was going through this stuff with like I said, with my abusive relationship, people would say, why don't you leave? And up to this day, when I hear somebody say that about somebody in a domestic relationship, I get upset because you don't know what how deep that situation is.
Right.
And it's not always easy to just walk up and leave, especially when you have kids. You don't know the background. So that's one thing that always sticks out to me, is like, be careful who you talk to.
Right. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And yeah, be careful who you talk to. And I think people have to learn how to show empathy towards people and others, and show them grace, because we all carry a lot, and people handle it differently. Yes, some of us keep it internalized. Some of us, we share everything with the world. Every experience, every bad thing, we see it on social media. I mean. And sometimes I'm like, oh gosh, they just shared that. I get it. Some things are funny, some things are not. But I'm like, that was too much information, But only thing about social media, it, depending on how you post, people think your life is great all the time. I even think about sometimes when I post, people think, oh, things are wonderful, things are great. You're doing your podcast, you're teaching. Yeah, but you don't see those moments where I feel like I'm in this little box here and the walls are closing in. You don't see that, you see what I'm outwardly showing, but you don't know what I'm dealing with internally.
Yeah.
And even as I say, as a man, sometimes, and I'm gonna put it this way, as a Black man, sometimes we are told to get over it. You know,
Yes.
I in indirectly I was told that one day, like, oh, you got this. And I was venting to someone. I just needed them to listen. And their response was, you got this. And I'm like, well, I don't. That's why I'm
Yeah.
talking to you, because my patience is like this, and I'm trying to share what I'm experiencing. And I'm thinking nobody wants to listen.
Yeah.
And that's how I felt, like, nobody want to hear what I have to say. So it puts you in a place where you just say, forget it. I'm not going to talk to anybody. I'll keep it
Right.
all to myself.
Yeah, it's so sad. It's so sad because you were talking about social media, and I'm thinking the same. It's like all those posts you see is like you don't know what that person is dealing with
Right, right.
inwardly. And again, for you as a black man, and many black men, they were raised, you don't cry, you
You
don't
don't.
express your feelings, you don't, so you're
Yeah.
not supposed to have emotions, I guess, as a
We're not. And then one thing I've said, even on like the relationship podcasts I've had, I'm working on just sharing what I'm thinking, what I'm feeling,
Mhm.
whether somebody wants to hear it or not.
Right,
This is what I'm feeling in a moment. Oh, how was your day? Oh, do you really want to know how my day was? Okay,
right.
good. Let me share with you the good, the bad, and the ugly.
Yeah.
Um, and it's not always about teaching or the kids. Maybe I'm just in my emotions for the day. There are things
Right.
that happen.
Yeah.
I remember sharing with someone about, I don't know, for that day, like I was thinking about my dad, and I was just kind of feeling down and
Yeah.
sad. And when I shared it, it was just kind of like, okay. I was
There
like, you know what? Now I don't want to talk to you anymore.
we go.
So yeah.
Mm,
Um, and I think it's people, and I don't want to make it a male female thing, but I think it's people sometimes we don't know how to we don't know what to say to people when they're in their feelings or when they're going through things. We don't know how to comfort them in that moment. And what you said before is important. Sometimes you just need somebody to listen.
yeah.
I don't want you to fix it. Nope.
Yeah.
Put your tool belt up and put that hammer away and saw. And all. No, don't try to fix anything. Just listen.
Yeah.
And I think if we learn to listen to each other, we'll learn a lot.
Yes.
But we don't like to listen.
No, we
Yeah.
don't. No, we don't. And
Oh,
for me, that's all, most of the time, that's all I need is
yeah.
somebody to listen.
Yeah, I think that's how we are as people. Most of us, men and women, we need people to listen, but
Mhm.
society tells us you got to fix everything. No, sometimes you don't have to fix it. Just hear that
You be
person out.
strong. You're strong.
You got this.
Handle it. Yeah, you're strong. You can handle it.
Yeah, and the next thing you see somebody in their grave. You're like, what happened?
Uh,
They were being strong. That's what happened.
I
Yeah,
was being strong last year, and I ended up in the hospital.
yeah.
It's T. They call it a T. I don't know the exact term, but it's a TI. They call it. It's a mini stroke
Oh wow,
right
wow,
before Thanksgiving.
wow.
Yeah, because I was being strong.
Being strong. Yeah, yeah. These things happen. We got to take care of ourselves. And then the people around us have to be open and willing to listen to us, so they know how to take care of us. And that's a part of what I say. There are seasons, and sometimes we realize the people we have in our circles may not need to be there, especially
Yeah,
if they're not willing to take care of us
exactly.
in the way we need to be taken care of. So
Yeah. Yes, you're right about that. And you have to know. I mean, that's why I say you have to know if you're gonna be around them, you have to know them
yes,
enough to say, I can't go to this person.
yeah, yeah,
You just have to know who your real circle is, who you can talk
absolutely,
to. Yeah.
absolutely. Before we get to the end, because I'm realizing, oh, we've been on for a while. Okay. I always try to keep things under a reasonable
And
amount of time.
we always
Yeah.
have such a good time when we get on here.
And they're like, "Wait, okay, it's almost 45 minutes." But let's talk about starting over in terms of careers. What are some words of encouragement, advice you can offer somebody who may be changing careers or going into a new position in their careers, or maybe wanting to start a new business and not sure what to do?
So Mark, you always put me on the spot with
I,
this
I
question.
know, well, I can't tell anybody. Well, I can tell you about career change, but a business, no.
Um, business wise, if you're in a business and you have to, what would I say to you? I would say, I don't want to say be strong, but I would say have confidence in yourself.
There you go.
Prayer, of
Yes.
course, me is always prayer number one, but have confidence in yourself. Know your strengths and your weaknesses. Um, going into, for me, it's a little different, but if you know that change is hard for you, and you have to change careers, maybe find a group,
Yes.
that you can talk to. You can go and kind of talk what you're trying to do and get that inspiration and get that encouragement and get that fear out of the way. Sometimes we need that as people to get that encouragement, because fear can be so paralyzing.
Yes.
So it's not a cliche, but you can do it. But sometimes
Right.
because it sounds cliche, but you can do it. It's just that we need to get past that fear step. And
Right.
once you
Right.
get past that, just go for it. Give it all you got. And again, if you fail, if it comes to a point where you have to shut the doors or turn your back, you didn't fail.
Right.
You succeeded. Look for the lessons in what you did.
Absolutely.
So that's kind of where I am. I had to learn the lessons and see the lessons and see the success while moving forward, right?
Yes.
So now I'm taking some of those lessons that I've learned and bringing it over into a new career with me. And yes, I have some fears of failure, but I can't let that hold me back. I got to keep pressing and pushing.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So I would say get in a group, encourage yourself, let somebody walk through that had the experience, like
Right.
I shared with you earlier with this young man. I had some experience now over the last 5 years. So he came to me. I'm sure he had fears.
Right. Absolutely.
So he came to me, he's like, can you help me? And I was willing to help. So there's people out there that's willing to help you. You
Yes.
don't have to do this alone. You're not in
Yeah.
this alone.
That's a lesson I had to learn with teaching.
Yeah.
I went into it thinking I'm gonna go into this thing blind. I don't know, nobody's gonna help me. And it was that way in the beginning until I said to some colleagues, I need help. I said, y'all keep walking past me. Well, you've been in the school for a long time. Yes, but I'm in a new position. I need help. Like, y'all can't just leave me out there by myself because I'm drowning, But if I didn't say anything, they would assume that I had it all under control. Yeah, I can pretend. Yeah.
Yeah. I was just gonna ask you, how many of them are mind readers, Mark?
I know. But you know what though? I am getting so much better at sharing my thoughts and feelings. And part of that I feel like is the podcast, talking to so many different people, and as they're being vulnerable, I am too, because it allows me to open up and share. I'm like, oh, I never mentioned that before. Oh, I mentioned this before, but I'm learning, like, I have to say when I need help. I have to say when, I don't know something, because we can always pretend we do. And I also, one of the things I promised myself, and I made a promise to God, I said, this is many years ago. I said, if you open up the door, I'm going to walk through it. And I trust you that you've equipped me with whatever I need for the next step of my life. Because sometimes you don't know what's on the opposite side of that door. And when you get there, you go, oh, wait a minute. And I'm good. I've had this experience. Thank you. You've already equipped me with that.
Yeah.
Like I'm getting myself into a situation now. Not a situation. It's going to be an experience with a little bit of acting. I agreed to do it. Just was at an event. Lady has this play she's gonna do, needed a part, and somebody mentioned my name, and I was like, sure. I'm like, what did I just agree to? and I was reading the script now, and I know my kids thought I was crazy today because I'm reading the script and I'm changing my voice for the character, and I'm like, oh, they don't know what I'm doing. Let me turn this way. But I'm like, well, that's another experience. And I'm
About.
I'm gonna walk into it and have fun with it. You
Yeah.
know?
Stepping out of your comfort zone.
Yeah. Oh, this year is a lot of that. A lot of stepping out of my comfort zone, but it's also brought on some anxiety because I'm like, "Ooh, am I ready
Yeah.
for this?"
Right.
And there's some things that I have no choice but to be ready for. Like I have this conference I'm going to this summer with with the administration. I'm like, why am I going with you guys? Like, I'm going with y'all. Like, I'm gonna be sitting there. I'm trying to figure out why was I invited, but I didn't ask. I just accepted and said, yes, I'll be there.
I was just gonna say, you don't have to necessarily know it's a path that's being opened.
Right. But
You know,
but you know how we are as people. We want to
yeah,
know why. Like, why am I going to
yeah,
this thing? But I have to just say, okay, I accept it.
yeah,
There's a reason why they want me there. Lord, you just
yeah,
equipped me to be at this meeting
yes,
and be able to contribute to it, you
right,
know.
yeah.
Um and just all these things. Oh, we want you to host the Father's Day program at church. Okay. Just say okay. And
Because
I
they
can,
see it. They see it in you.
yeah,
They
but
see the thing that you don't see.
right, sometimes we don't see it. And I
Yeah,
know sometimes I don't see it.
yeah.
And to be honest, I mentioned this, we're gonna wrap up soon, but I mentioned this on another podcast about education. I never saw myself as a teacher. Because I had friends that were teachers, and I
Hmm.
was like, man, they're so good at their job. Oh man, they're great teachers. And I'm like, I can never compete with that. I'm watching them in awe, and I'm like, man, he's an excellent teacher. And then one of my buddies reached out to me. He's like, Mark, you're such a great teacher, and blah blah blah. And I'm like, seriously. It made me feel good to hear that. And he left me a long message, and I said, man, that was the encouragement I needed, because I was putting myself down
Yeah.
and basing myself on somebody else's life and
Oh
experience.
God.
Yeah, are we gonna go another 30 minutes talking about this
Oh God.
one? We may have to do a part two.
What we do. I'm real quick. That's where you see in this real estate business,
Yes.
that can get you.
Yeah.
Because there's so much out there on social media, and everybody's selling in $1 million cap, and I'm doing
Yeah.
this, and I'm like, why
Yeah.
can't I? And it's like, no, that's their thing.
That's theirs.
You
Yep.
find your thing, and you work with your thing, and
Yeah.
you know, perfect that, because I'm a little bit of a perfectionist, but perfect that, and you'll be all right. Don't look at
Absolutely.
their thing.
Well, that's easier said than done. Even with podcasting, I look at so many other podcasts and I'm like, I like that. I
Yeah,
don't like that.
do it.
How can I do but I decided I'm going to do my show the way I want to do it. If I
Yeah,
want to have a mini movie in the front of it, I'll do that.
yeah,
Like the last one I just did, that I uploaded, I have a poem at the end. Like, I'm going to do things the way I want to do it,
right.
and
Yeah,
make my show as unique as I can, not to compete with anybody else, but
right.
just this is me expressing myself through my creativity.
Yeah, and like you say, it's easier said than done, because, like I said, I see it all the time. It's like,
Yep.
well, I want to do that.
Right.
That
How'd you get all those followers? What you do? And I'm watching the show like, for real?
exactly.
That how? But and I'm such an introvert, believe it or not. I don't like being around a lot of people,
Mm,
because I get drained.
okay.
Too many people drain me. If I go to an event, I want to be on the outside of it and watch everybody else. Although I can be on the stage, I can do presentations and all that stuff, but I don't want to be down on the floor with all the people.
Right.
I can be on
Right.
the stage, that's me in the podium. So I'm like, maybe that's why I don't have all the followers, because I'm not reaching out like some people. I said, but that's not what I want to do. I don't want followers. I want listeners. I
Right.
want somebody who's going to listen, and whatever we're talking about, they're going to say, I enjoyed Elisa's story. She shared about her business, and that gave me some good information, and I'll go start my own business. Maybe I'll reach out to her. That's what I want somebody to take from it,
Yeah.
or not to fear taking the next step in their journey.
Right. Right.
Although fear
Yeah.
is a human emotion,
It's natural. Yeah.
yeah. But how do you conquer that fear, and what do you do? And like you said, prayer and going to people or the person that you know you could talk to. So that's what I want. I want somebody to hear it and say thank you. Even if they don't say it to me, they just whisper it.
Right.
Okay,
Yes.
fine.
I got, that was good. Yeah. It helped me. Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, Lisa, we're gonna have to stop it here because it's almost 9 o'clock, and I need to try to get some sleep. I don't know.
Okay.
Sleep will come whenever it wants to. I don't go to bed this early anyway. I'll be up at 1 o'clock in the morning going.
Me too. Me too.
But no, but I appreciate you coming on the podcast as always. I feel like there's always something to talk about. So, you know, maybe in the next later part of the year, have you come back on and we'll have something else to talk about and get updated where you are with your real estate business and any other ventures that may come up.
I appreciate you having me on as usual. Always fun.
You're welcome. You're welcome. Yeah, we have a good time. So, hey, I always want the guests to feel comfortable, be able to share, be able to talk, be able to laugh, all those good things. I'm never going to be like, haha, I got you or something. No, the world is crazy enough with that. I don't want to do that. I don't want to add to it. So I appreciate it. But for the listeners that are out there, I appreciate you tuning in. Feel free to tune in at any point. Hopefully I have something on any show that I do that, you know, that will touch your heart at some point. But I always like to end my shows like this. You know, this world is crying out for love. We are going through a lot of situations. When you look at the global world, then you look at our country, then you look at our cities, and then we look at our homes. We're going through a lot, and love is so important. And I always say, make sure you love your family members, your spouse, you love your friends, your co-workers. Love your co-workers sometimes. Yes, sometimes it might have to be from a distance, but you know, still love your co-workers. And I'll often say, love that stranger on the street, the person you know, or the person you don't know, the person you encounter, the person you see all the time, you know. But most of all, you know, take some time to look in the mirror and tell yourself I love you, because we don't do enough of that. So you have been listening to Living Life and Love. I'm your host, Mark Braxton from Raleigh, North Carolina. And y'all take care, and just remember to love somebody and include yourself. Peace.